the concept of colonialism. As part of our syllabus, it is placed in third chapter. So in this lesson, we are going to discuss about the origin of colonialism and meaning, nature, definitions of colonialism, and also what are the causes for this situation raised in the global politics. And we are going to know about common characteristics of colonialism. And after that, we are going to discuss about merits and demerits of colonialism also. So later on, we will go for another lesson. So basically, uh, the concept of this colonialism has a long history, began from the Egyptians and Greeks and Romans. So who built their colonies around their uh, uh, area. So, because of they want to strengthen their uh, states and to occupy neighboring places and to acquiring land positions around the places around their state. So later on in 7th century, Arabs conquered segment parts of Middle East and also many developed nations, as we uh, simply says, developed nations always trying to occupy undeveloped, underdeveloped nations. So if we see the basic information about this colonialism implies domination of people's life and culture also. So the main goal of colonialism is extraction of economic benefits from the colony. So colonialism results in control over life of natives of uh, in the areas of political, economic, cultural, and social spheres too. Because if we see our India also one of the best example for colony to the Britishers. So it is more subtle, whereas imperialism is more formal and aggressive. So if you see historically, there are basically two main types of colonization can be differentiated. One is settler colonialism, is the type of colonialism wherein a large number of immigrants, often motivated by religious, political, or economic reasons, settle in a new place and dominate the local indigenous population in economic, political, as well as in social aspects too. So, and second one is exploitation colonialism. It is involves relatively less number of immigrants and predominantly focuses on exploitation of the resources of the colonial country. So if you see, our India also one of the best example for this exploitation colonialism, because they occupied our India in the name of market and trade and business. They came here for in the name of business. Later on, they occupied our country and they uh, just a second. So, so they almost they if we say in simple words, they theft all of the country's precious things from our nation and they transported into their countries. So this is one of the exploitation colonialism. So this colonialism denotes a set of unequal relationships between the colonial power and the colony. So if you see colonialism, imperialism, and new imperialism. So these terms are very similar. If you say colonialism, as said earlier, a system in which a country conquers and rules over the regions. It involves exploiting the resources of the country for the benefit of the uh, who wanted to make that colony. So, imperialism means the ability of the state or empire to exert its influence beyond its borders. So, this influence can be exerted in multiple manners like colonialism, militarism, cultural hegemony, etc. So, thus, it can be safely argued that colonialism is a practice and imperialism is the idea driving that practice. So, new imperialism refers to period of territorial expansion by European powers. So, the United States and Japan during the late 19th and 20th centuries, which resulted in subjugation of almost all of Africa and parts of Asia too. So, it was distinct from the earlier phases of imperialistic expansion known as old imperialism. So, if we say historically speaking, the new imperialism started with the advent of industrial revolution. So if we say the Britishers also came in the name of trade, like industrial revolution time only. So in fact, it was a new strategy of imperialism which was devised by the industrialized countries for maximizing their economic benefits. So it contracts with the old form of imperialism, in which colonialism formed the main method of pursuing the imperialistic ambitions and goals. If we see what are the causes of imperialism, if we see the discovery of new land and trade routes for their benefits and economic consideration will be one of the causes, because the countries like England, France, Spain, and Portugal established their colonies primarily for the economic benefits only. Later on, they occupied in terms of political also. One more cause is um, European rivalry too. So the exploration and colonization was started by Spain and Portugal. So gradually, other countries like France, England also entered in the race. Acquiring new colonies become a thing of national pride. So, moreover, due to various economic benefits of colonization, a stage of competitive colonialism started among the European powers. So, and also in the name of this colonialism, they started to spread Christianity also. During the age of discovery, the Catholic Church started a major effort to spread Christianity in the New World by converting indigenous peoples. So, as such, the establishment of Christian missionaries went to simultaneously with the colonizing efforts of European powers such as Spain, France, and Portugal. Some push factors also there for the colonialism to enclosure movement, taking land out of cultivation and converting it into pasture land for sheep, was creating surplus population, sheep raising more profitable than traditional agriculture, required fewer laborers too. So the new lands in America gave this unemployed a place to work. So if we see in Asia, the Europeans made ancient and well-populated societies, and hence direct colonization was not feasible. So, like India, also one of the best example for this colonization. So, rather, armed coastal trading posts along maritime trade routes such as Goa, Malacca, and Macau were established. In certain areas, both Spanish and Portuguese became the effective rulers across the world. So, on the contrary, in the Western Hemisphere, the European colonization involved emigration of large numbers of this colonization. So European, if we see the European colonization in the India, first we say Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama's discovery of new sea route to India in 1498 started the process of direct European commerce with India. So the Portuguese soon set up trading ports in Goa, Daman Dayu, and Bombay. So the next to arrive were the Dutch, the English, and finally the French. So the internal conflicts among the Indian kingdoms, the technological superiority of Europeans, and financial benefits of commerce enabled the European traders to gradually gain political and military influence and appropriate lands in India. So, although all European powers controlled various regions of southern and eastern India, and also ultimately they lost all their territories in India to the British because of the lack of unity and internal conflicts between the Indian kings. So, although all European powers controlled various regions because of this reason only. So, and also with the exemption of the few outposts like French of Pondicherry, the Dutch port in Travancore, and Portuguese colonies of Goa, Daman Dayu. So, if we see the impact of this colonialism, so Columbian exchange also impacting this colonialism. The term Columbian exchange refers to the widespread exchange of plants, animals, culture, human populations, technology, and ideas that occurred between the New World, means Americas, and Old World, means Eurasia, in the 15th and 16th centuries as a result of European colonization and trade. And also one of the major impact is slave trade. So to effectively utilize the resources of the colonies, colonizers needed immense amount of labor. So during the initial years, the European settlers met labor requirements by enslaving the native populations. So, however, the decline in the native population led to importing slaves from Africa, which emerged as a lucrative alternative, and also boost to mercantilism, because in the way was both the cause as well as the effect of colonialism. So subsequently, the benefits due to colonial exploitation further reinforced the ideology of mercantile capitalism and spread across Europe during this colonialism. As a result, these countries saw very rapid increase in trade volume while colonies suffered proportionately. So, if you see our so these are the causes of colonialism, and some of causes also there, like to educate the backward countries, colonies are treated as the pride of the country, and unstable political conditions of colonies also made this colonialism ease to European countries. So if we see, the major impact of colonialism is the chief purpose of the colonialism was enriching the mainland, because the wealth that was collected from the colonies made the colonial empires very prosperous, because they occupied and they theft entire properties like jewels and precious things like spices. They they theft like gold and diamonds also. So colonialism gave a big boost to industrial revolution. So the colonies provided a safe uh, for excess population in the colonial countries. So majorly the these colonialism impacted many underdeveloped countries because colonialism impacted many developing countries like India. In recent times, also we are depending upon our many developed nations. So these colonialism implies domination of people's life and culture. If we see, they have changed many things, many habits also. They their impact is there in our uh, Indian culture too. So if you see, the political and legal domination over an alien in society is one of the common characteristic of these colonialism. So they impacted, even if we see, we adopted many constitutional features from other countries because of this colonial effect only. So we brought many things from many constitution, and we are implementing many traditions from other countries. So if we see, we are having presidential form of government, and at a time means we have president and we have parliamentary form of government. So we are mixing with these two traditions from the one is from America and one is from Britain. So this is the one of the example for this colonialism impact. So there is exploitation is there between imperial powers and the colonies, and also the opportunity to make money was one of the primary motivations for the colonization of the new world. So if we see, majorly the they tried to control entire the world. So Britishers almost most of the nations are controlled over by the these Britishers entire the world. If you see, now we are watching the United States of America is one of the superpower, and is like major key player in the world politics. Before that, before 1776, USA also under the colonization of Britishers only. So they got independence from Britishers in 1776. Like India, we got independence in 1947 from the Britishers. America got independence in 1776. So majority of the nations are under the control of Britishers only. So this is the causes, nature, and impact of the colonialism. So if we see, we are having one more topic is World War I and World War II. So these are the main incidents in international political system. If we see, these World War I, also known as Great War, lasted from 28 July 1914 to 11 November of 1918. So these World War I fought between Allied powers and Central powers. So the main members of Allied powers were France, Russia, Britain. The United States also fought on the side of Allied after 1917. So in the time of end of World War I. The main members of Central powers were Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. So if you see, we in this chapter we are going to the no the causes of World War One and causes of World War Two and the consequences of Second World War. So so if you see, the primary causes of World War One is simply, we can say there is no single event that led to World War, because the war happened because of several different events that took place in the years building up to 1914. So the new international expansionist policy of Germany is one of the cause. In 1890, the new emperor of Germany, William II, began the international policy that sought to turn his country into world power. So Germany was seen as a threat by the other powers, and established the international situation. So mutual defense alliances, like countries throughout Europe, and mutual defense agreements, these treaties meant that if one country was attacked, allied countries were bound to defend them. So the principle of unity here. So the Triple Alliance in 1882, linking Germany with Austria, Hungary, and Italy. The Triple Entente, which was made up of Britain, France, Russia, concluded by 1907, like as we said, allied power and central powers. So there were two rival groups in Europe too. So if you see, imperialism is one of the primary cause for this World War One. Before World War One, Africa and parts of Asia were points of contention among the European countries because of their raw materials. So the increasing competition and desire for greater empires led to an increase in the confrontation that helped push the world into World War One. And militarism also one of the primary cause for the World War One. As the world entered into the 20th century, an arms race had begun, because by 1914, Germany had the greatest increase their natives in this time period. This increase in militarism helped push the countries involved in the war. And also, nationalism is one of the key factor for this World War One, because much of the origin of the war was based on the desire of Slavic peoples from in Bosnia and many countries to no longer be part of Austria-Hungary, but instead of part of Serbia. In this way, nationalism led to the war. So one of the immediate cause is the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. In June 1914, Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, who shot while he was visiting in Bosnia. He was killed by a Serbian person who thought that Serbia should control Bosnia instead of Austria. So because its leader had been shot, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. So as a result, Russia got involved in, as it had an alliance with Serbia, and Germany then declared war on Russia because Germany had an alliance with Austria-Hungary. So Britain declared war on Germany because of its invasion of neutral Belgium. Britain had agreements to protect both Belgium and France. So some of the major battles during the war included the first battle of the Marne, Battle of the Somme, Battle of Tannenberg, Battle of Gallipoli, and the Battle of Verdun. So these are the major incidents in the World War One. So if you see the phases of the war, the conflict developed on several fronts in Europe, Africa, and Asia. So the two main scenarios were the Western Front, where the Germans confronted Britain, France, and after 1917, the Americans. The second front was the Eastern Front, in which the Russian fought against Germans and Hungarians. So, if we see the consequences of the World War One, majorly the economic consequences are important for the these chapter, because World War One cost the participating countries a lot of money, because Germany and Great Britain spent about 60% of the money their economy produced. Countries had to raise taxes, borrow money from their citizens. They also printed money in order to buy weapons and other things they needed for war. This led to inflation after the war in the countries. And political consequences also there, like World War brought an end of four monarchies. Caesar Nicholas II of Russia, Kaiser William of Germany, Emperor Charles of Austria, and the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire had to step down due to the World War One. So new countries were created out of old countries, old empires. Austria-Hungary was carved up into a number of independent states. Russia and Germany gave land to Poland. Countries in the Middle East were put under the control of Great Britain and France. So, and also social consequences also there. World War One changed society completely. Birth rates declined because millions of young men died. 8 million died in the World War One. Millions wounded, maimed, widows and orphans. Civilians lost their land and fled to the other countries. So the role of women also changed. They played a major part in the replacing men in factories and offices. Many countries gave women more rights after the war had ended, including the right to vote. And also, the upper classes lost their leading role in the society. Young middle and lower class men and women demanded a say in farming their country after the war. And also, after the conclusion of this war, the Treaty of Versailles placed there on June 28th of 1919. World War One officially ended with the signing the Treaty of Versailles. So the Treaty of Versailles was an attempt to prevent the world from going to another war. So we will discuss about this Treaty of Versailles. It is and organized in several chapters, each having different classes. So if we see simply, the territorial classes are there. France regained some places, and military classes are there. War reparations also there, and some other treaties also there after the ending of World War One. So if we see the relationship between India and World War One, India, being a former British colony, played a vital role in helping Britain and its allies win over Germany and allies, a role that is often overlooked. So we are also indirectly participated in World War One. Being a British colony, the Indian Army contributed a large number of soldiers to the European, Mediterranean, and the Middle East conflicts of war in the World War One. So the Indian Army fought against this German Empire in East Africa and also on the Western Front. So they served in places as diverse in France and Belgium, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Gallipoli, Palestine, and Sinai. So more than 70,000 of Indian soldiers who served British in World War One lost their lives. So Sir Claude, Commander-in-Chief of Indian Army, once said, Britain could not have come through the wars if they hadn't had the Indian Army. So as high as 100 million British pounds was given by India to Britain to fund their war, anticipating Dominion status and home rule in return. So the British raised men and money from India, as well as large supplies of food, cash and ammunition collected by British taxation policies. In return, the British promised to award self-rule in India at the end of the war, which eventually was not delivered. However, the war to end all wars turned out to be the opposite. By ensuring Germany's economic ruin and political humiliation through the Treaty of Versailles, the post-war settlement provided a fertile ground of World War II. So, this is the World War I causes and impact of First World War. So, if you see the Second World War, which was commenced in September 1939 to 1945. So after the conclusion of after the not conclusion, after the World War One, developed nations like USA and other countries made with the effect of Versailles Treaty, they had created an international organization that is League of Nations. They started functioning from 1920. So up to 1939, they had played a crucial role in the protection of peace and security among the nations. So after that, the failure or loopholes in the League of Nations causes for the World War II. So the major causes of World War II were numerous because they include the impact of the Treaty of Versailles following World War I, the worldwide economic depression, failure of appeasement, the rise of militarism in Germany and Japan, and the failure of the League of Nations are the major causes for the World War II. So, World War II was a conflict that involved virtually every part of the world during the years of 1939 to 1945. So, the principal belligerents were the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, Japan, and allies, France, Great Britain, and United States, the Soviet Union, and to a lesser extent China. So it was biggest conflict in the history, and that had lasted almost 6 years time. So nearly some 100 million people had been militarized and 50 million had been killed, around 3% of the world population. So if you see the Treaty of Versailles following World War I, the victorious Allied powers made to decide Germany's future, because Germany was forced to sign this Treaty of Versailles. Under this treaty, Germany had to accept guilt for the war and to pay reparations. Germany lost territory and was prohibited from having a large military. The humiliation faced by Germany under this treaty paved the way for the spread of ultra-nationalism in the Germany. And also, failure of the League of Nations is one of the major cause for the World War II. The League of Nations was an international organization set up in 1919 and functioning started from the 1920 to keep world peace, like present UNO. It was intended that all countries would be members, and that if there were disputes between countries, they could be settled by negotiation rather than by force. So the League of Nations was a good idea, but ultimately a failure, as not all countries joined the League. So that's what the League of Nations has been not strengthened. So Also, the League had no army to prevent military aggression, such as Italy's invasion of Ethiopia in Africa or Japan's invasion of Manchuria in China. So, one is the important for this failure of League of Nations. And the Great Depression of 1929 also causes for the World War II. The worldwide economic depression of the 1930s took its toll in different ways in Europe and Asia. So, in Europe, political power shifted to totalitarian to imperialist governments in several countries, including Germany, Italy, and Spain. In Asia, a resource starved Japan began to expand aggressively, invading China and maneuvering to control a sphere of influence in the Pacific region. So, the rise of fascism also one of the cause for the World War II. Victor's stated aims in World War I had been to make the world safe for the democracy. And post-war, Germany was made to adopt democratic constitution, as did most of the other states restored or created after the World War I. So in the 1920s, however, the wave of nationalistic, militaristic, totalitarianism, known by its Italian name, fascism. So it promised to minister to people's wants more effectively than democracy and presented itself as the one sure defense against communism. So Benito Mussolini established the first fascist European dictatorship during the interwar period in Italy in 1922. So this rise of Nazism also one of the cause for the World War II. Adolf Hitler, the leader of the German National Socialist Nazi Party, uh, preached a racist brand of fascism. So Hitler promised to overturn the Versailles Treaty, restore German wealth and glory, and secure additional Lebensraum, leaving space for the German people, who he contended deserve more as members of superior race. So in 1933, Hitler became the German Chancellor and in a series of subsequent moves established himself as dictator. Moreover, in 1941, the Nazi regime unleashed a war of extermination against Slavs, Jews, and other elements deemed inferior by Hitler's ideology. So, policy of appeasement also one of the primary cause for the World War II. Hitler openly denounced the Treaty of Versailles and began secretly building up Germany's army and weapons. So, although Britain and France knew of Hitler's actions, they thought a stronger Germany could be stop the spread of communism from Russia. An example of appeasement was the Munich Agreement in September 1938. In the agreement, Britain and France allowed Germany to annex areas of Czechoslovakia where German speakers lived. So Germany agreed not to invade the rest of Czechoslovakia or any other country. However, in March 1939, Germany broke its promise and invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia. Even then, neither Britain nor France was prepared to take military action. So, if we see the starting points, the starting time of World War II, the 3 years of mounting international tension, encompassing the Spanish Civil War, the union of Germany and Austria, Hitler's occupation of the Sudetenland, and invasion of Czechoslovakia led to deterioration of ties between Axis powers and Allied powers. However, the Germany invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939, and subsequently 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. So this is marked the beginning of World War II. So these are the causes of the World War II. So if we see, after the World War World War II, new superpowers created. World War II brought about changes in the status of countries and continents. Britain and France lost their positions of predominance as superpowers and yielded place to USA and USSR. So USA and USSR become superpowers after the World War II. Later on, in 1992, after the ending of Cold War, when USSR divided into separate independent nations, disintegration of USSR, the USA only became as superpower. So after the Second World War, started decolonization. After the war, Britain and France were confronted with various domestic and external problems. Both of them could no longer hold into their respective colonies. Thus, a post-world witnessed the end of colonialism in Africa and Asia. So after that, the birth of United Nations placed one of the momentous results of the World War II was the birth of United Nations organization. Although the League failed to deliver, League means League of Nations, League failed to deliver, mankind did not altogether lose its hope of making the world a safer and happier place to live in. So then the United Nations Charter enshrines the hopes and ideals of mankind, on the basis of which countries can work together to maintain lasting peace. However, the establishment of United Nations organization was agreed much before the end of World War II under the Atlantic Charter. So then Cold War started. After the direct war ends, the start of Cold War happened. After the end of the war, a conference was held in Potsdam, Germany, to set up peace treaties. The countries that fought with Hitler lost territory and had to pay reparations to the Allies. Germany and its capital Berlin were divided into four parts. The zones were to be controlled by Great Britain, United States, France, and Soviet Union. So then three Western allies and Soviet Union disagreed on many things, and as a time went on, Germany was divided into two separate countries, like East Germany, which had a communist government, and West Germany, which was a democratic state. So this laid the foundation of the Cold War. Later, the new economic world order also created. Bretton Woods Conference, formerly United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference, meeting at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in July 1 to 22nd in 1944 during World War II, to make financial arrangements for the post-war world after the expected defeat of Germany and Japan. It drew up a project for the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, we will known as IBRD, or now known as World Bank, to make long-term capital available to states urgently needing such foreign aid, and a project for the International Monetary Fund to finance short-term imbalances in international payments in order to stabilize exchange rates. Also, the US dollar was established as a reserve currency for the world trade. If you see the role of India in World War II, World War II had taken an immense toll on the British Empire. Britain had lost a lot of capital, and they were looking to their colonies to help them get the status of world power back. However, Mahatma Gandhi at this time organized Indian against the British. Also, Indian independence movement at that time, it's in peak level. So also World War II broke out to contain Hitler's intention of having German colonies beyond its borders, the same colonial occupation um, that Britain had already been practicing for centuries. Thus, after the war, people all over the world started supporting voices against British occupation over its colonies. When the Labour Party came into power in 1945 in Britain, it inclined towards internationalism and racial equality among other liberal principles. So soon after coming into power, Prime Minister Clement Attlee from Labour Party began the process of granting India its independence in 1947. So World War II resulted for India's independence. So this is one of the major impact of World War II towards India. So these are the uh, impact of Second World War. So uh, if you see the consequences of the Second World War, uh, the Second World War ended with the supremacy of European over Asia and Africa. Several countries, including India, Burma, Sri Lanka, Sudan, Libya, Algeria, were freed from the fetters of Western domination and got political independence after the Second World War. So, after the Second World War, many countries in the world got independence from their colonial rulers. As a result of Second World War, the power of position of various nations in Europe and especially Britain, France, Germany, Italy have undergone a great transformation. So the importance of these nations in the international scene had been greatly undermined. On the other hand, the USSR and USA have emerged from the war as the superpowers. So the Second World War accelerated the scientific progress in all spheres of human life. The armed supremacy of the USA and USSR once again brought the nations in the world into two opposite blocks. One dominated by the capitalist ideology of America, and the other by the socialist ideology of Soviet Russia. So the power rivalry between these two superpowers have paved the way for the origin of the Cold War after the Second World War. So, if we see the First World War, which was commenced on 28th July 1914, was bloodiest, the costliest war that has been ever fought in the historical mankind. The Second World War, which was commenced in September 1939, was an inevitable consequence of the various causes and events that took place after the First World War. So, with the effect of this World War II, the creation of United Nation organization and other organs of this uh, United Nations organization also placed for the implementation of international peace and security. So, if you see the major causes of this World War II is Treaty of Versailles and failure of disarmament and failure of League of Nations and World Economic Crisis also major causes for the World War II. So these are the causes of the Second World War. So this is the First World War and Second World War concepts. So if we if you have any doubts regarding these two world wars, you may ask. Else, I will. Uh, if you see the facts about World War II, the World War II was not only fought in Europe, because entire world participated in this war, and after 1943, American forces slowly removed the Japanese from power in the Pacific Front. Full Japanese surrender came after the US dropped the atomic bombs in Hiroshima, Nagasaki in 1945, that resulted for the ending of World War II. And also, the total World War II claimed the lives of approximately 60 million people. And also, World War II was a continuation of World War I. The immediate cause of World War II was the German invasion of Poland, and also the United States of America involved in World War II before the Pearl Harbor attack. At the start of World War II, President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared the US would practice neutrality. However, on March 11th of 1941, the Lend-Lease Act passed, which allowed US to provide military aid to allied nations during World War II. So, Germany surrendered in May of 1945, while Japan did not surrender until September. So, the Marshall Plan gave aid to Europe to rebuild after World War II. So, World War II is still a popular topic today, because it was one of the most violent and complex wars in history. So these are the facts about World War II, only give a very brief overview. So uh, this is the syllabus. As per the syllabus, we have discussed about World War I and World War II. So if you have any doubts regarding this World War One and World War Two, you may ask. Else, I will conclude the session. So today only one participant is there. Okay. Thank you for your participation. We will meet on tomorrow at the same time at 10:30. Thank you for your participation. I am concluding the session.